Ellis here. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Billy Quarantillo ahead of his fight on November 6th at UFC 268. How's it going, Billy?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Good. And obviously, we were speaking before this, and you've just been a training. So right now, what stage of camp are you at? Is it at the peak yet, or is it just starting out?
Yeah, definitely not at the peak yet. But right after coming off this Gabriel Benitez fight of the night, super excited to be coming off that huge win. I had a little knee issue. I had a couple of things. I was banged up and bruised up, but I did a good job doing like my strength and conditioning, staying in good shape. And then a couple of weeks ago, when we kind of caught wind that this fight November 6th is a possibility, then we really ramped it up. But yeah, we got about 7 weeks out now still. So it's been a good intense camp to start, but I'm sure these next few weeks are going to be even more intense. We can't wait.
And how does the camp look? Does anything change fight to fight, or is it kind of the same people, the same bodies you're sparring with and you're training with every time?
Yeah, so fortunately for this fight, it's a similar opponent in terms of just being a really good striker. Burgos is, I think, a little more dangerous than Benitez. He's a right-handed fighter. He does a little bit more boxing. So we're taking that approach, kind of filling in the gaps and getting better at what we need to get better at. And but it's very similar in terms of I had a great training camp for the last fight. I did a lot of things right. I worked my ass off, which I always do. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same people. I will be reaching out to a few of their coaches. I don't want to give anything away yet, but in these next couple of weeks, I'll have some new guys we're bringing in and guys around here in Florida that I'm working with. I'm really excited about it, but I don't want to spoil anything yet. It's not official yet.
Cool, man. And in terms of the whole pandemic situation we've got and COVID, fighters have a tough enough time getting to the fight without getting bumps and bruises and pulling out injured. So what's it been like trying to deal with COVID and just trying to get bodies into spar, as we said, and things like that? How's it impacting the actual camp? Does it have any impact?
Yes and no. It did. I think last year it definitely did. Getting ready for the Spike Carlisle fight, especially. The gyms were shut down and everything. Right now, I'm at the point where our gym, as long as our gym's open and as long as there's people showing up, I can't really. I'm not really going to be worrying about getting COVID because there's really nothing you could do at this point. But right now, I don't think so as much. Luckily, we live in Florida. They're pretty open, a pretty open state, and I can't really predict getting it or not getting it. I'm not limiting myself in training. I'm reaching out to all the guys that can help me get ready for this fight because that's the number one goal is to win this fight and keep moving closer and closer to that world championship.
Brilliant. And I want to just touch on your last fight before we get into it. Firstly, just heading into that fight, obviously coming off your first loss in the UFC, what was the mindset like going into that one?
It was as much as I was coming off the loss, and I remember talking about this, right before the fight, even though I was coming off a loss, I was still on like a 4-year streak of being undefeated. So I did lose I would say I didn't really lose confidence, but I definitely felt that loss and that I was beatable. I was on a great winning streak, and anytime I lost, I've had a couple losses in the past, few years. Those 2 losses, I really just go back to the drawing board, look at what I should have been doing better in the training camp. And we've been able to do a lot more, going into the Benitez fight. So I pretty much had a 7-month training camp of literally just working on everything that I think I needed to improve on. And we had great results with the Benitez fight. And I still look back on, what could we have done better? And what do we need to do better to get to the top 10, top 15, top 10, top 5 type situation.
Yeah. And obviously the opponents who beat you, he went on and he got, knocked out in, was it about 16 seconds, something like that. So what was your reaction when that happened? Are you kind of like, happy about it, or screw that guy? Or is it like, oh, that makes my defeat, it doesn't age well, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do remember, I watched it. I remember someone messaged me and they're like, that sucks. Like, he could, if he wins that fight, then, possible rematch down the future. He's top 10 in the division now. So someone I'm still looking at, but I have no ill will towards Gavin Tucker, you know what I mean? Or my other opponents that I've won or lost against. So at the end of the day, my career is in my hands. I truly believe that. So I'm not worried about how, I used to think about that, like, oh, this guy beat a UFC guy and I want to get to the UFC. So it is what it is. But now it's at the point where I can literally control my own destiny. So I'm not worried about anyone who beat me, what they're doing. I know what it's going to take to get to where I want to get to. And I know I'm capable of doing it.
Brilliant. We'll go into the fight now. Obviously, it was a brilliant fight of the night. Surprisingly to me, anyway, your first bonus checked into being in the UFC. So, firstly, just focus on the fight itself. You've had a bit of time to reflect now. How do you think it went for you?
Honestly, at the end of the day, it went perfect for me. Everything happens for a reason. I had this weird intuition right before the fight. I remember like moving around and thinking, and in my head, I was like, man, I'm going to go out there. And in my head, I kind of visualized it. I'm like, I'm going to tag him with a big right hand. I'm going to get on top of him. I'm going to take his back. I'm going to choke him out. And in my head, that's what I'm thinking. And, sure enough, we go there and I tagged him and I took his back and I couldn't get the choke. And then I remember he turned into me and we both got up and I was like, oh man, now this is going to be a dogfight, because he was able to survive what I thought was going to take him out right away. But I still thought it was cool that I visualized it and it happened almost perfectly. And then sure enough, it just turned into one of like what a Billy Q fight is. It's going to be a rough fight. I pressured him the whole time. I landed a lot of good strikes. I was happy with that. The only thing I really wasn't happy with was not being able to finish from the back, with that back control. And there was definitely moments where I should have went from his back to mount so I could have landed more shots. But watching his fights, no one really controlled him that well. So only one guy took his back in the UFC, and he only had it for like 10 seconds or maybe like 20 seconds. He took his back and he didn't use the body lock. So Benitez was able to roll out right away. So that's why every chance I got to take his back, I put him right in that body lock just so I didn't lose the position, and I was able to control him, for a good part of the fight.
Yeah, Benitez, a tough customer and a very good win for yourself. And as I mentioned, your first bonus check, which seems, a travesty considering you've been in bangers ever since you've got into the UFC, but finally got that check. And you were straight off on your honeymoon afterwards, wasn't you? So congrats on that, by the way. And was it nice to, be on your holidays with a bit of extra money in your pocket?
Yeah, well, not only like the holidays, but just, getting married. And, my wife has been with me for 7 years now. When we first started dating, I was fighting for a couple $100 in like dive bars and, clubs and stuff like that. So I feel like me and her have just grown so much together, and she deserves to be with the man I am now, not the guy that she started, she took that chance on dating this, 1-0 pro fighter, literally not making a lot of money at all. So I think it was just a great, I feel, blessed to be in the position I'm at. I've worked every single day since 2010 to try to get to the UFC and to finally get like a real decent paycheck, and a accumulation of all the the checks that the UFC has given me since 2019. I'm just in a great position and I'm not taking it for granted. I want to make sure this is nowhere near the peak. The peak's going to be, much down the road when we're fighting for championships and, taking huge money fights is what we're still heading towards.
Yeah, and hopefully the money keeps rolling, and UFC 268 should be a good opportunity for that. I imagine they'll bump it up to 75K on the bonuses, although you might have a lot of competition for that prize. You did mention straight after the fight, you were saying, oh, I'd love to get on that MSG card. Here it is now. What was reaction when this got, put on your table?
Oh man, it was, when I heard that it was a possibility, and then my manager was like, all right, it's going to happen now. I literally just prayed and thanked God that I'm in this position to do what I love, and to be able to. I was talking to Dana White in between the rounds of the last fight, in between the second and third round. I was like, all right, after this, we want a big fight. And he's like, well, basically like, we'll see, kind of like nodding type situation. And then right after, I was like, all right, now we're ready for a big fight. This is my 5th Apex fight. And he's like, all right, let's do it. And he's basically saying like, we'll get you on this big card. So now it's like, just a dream come true, an opportunity of a lifetime. And I need to make the most of it. And I can't wait to go out there and prove a lot of people wrong. A lot of people are counting me out against Burgos, but I think it's a great matchup, and I think I'm going to handle business.
Yeah, arguably the biggest card of the year. It's massive, and for you, on top of fighting at MSG on this card, at first you mentioned Charles Rose's name, and all due respect to him, this is a much bigger fight for yourself. So in terms of Shane Burgos as an opponent, 14th ranked featherweight, what do you make of him?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Rosa. I thought going into that fight, I was like, I don't really like calling people out, but I do remember Rosa was coming off a win, like right before that. It was still in my head. I'm like, oh, I'd fight that guy. Like, he's been in the UFC for a long time. But then after the fight, looking back on it, you don't really think about that stuff, and you don't think of like what the type of performance you're going to have. So after beating up Benitez like that, sure, calling out Rosa looks weird because I already beat, Benitez like that. So I could have thought of it better. I would have loved to call out Burgos. I think it's a great matchup. I have a ton of respect for him, at least. And I just can't wait for it. I think he's a super exciting fighter. There's a reason he's on the MSG card. There's a reason I'm on the MSG card. And my really the biggest goal for me this fight is I need to be the most violent fighter in just a card full of violent fighters. I think obviously Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler, that's going to be just a super vicious fight. Usman, Covington, Rose Namajunas versus Wei Lee, that's going to be a crazy fight. So Frankie Edgar, Chito Vera, that's going to be a fight. Eli Quinta. So there's so many big fights. I'm just going to do what I do best, go out there and put on a show, and hopefully it gets me some extra shekels.
Yeah, so is that the game plan for this? Are you're going to go in there, be violent, stand toe to toe with Burgos, and hope you're the one who emerges victorious? Is there any, are you game planning any particular way for this one, or is it just being the best version of yourself?
Yeah, just building off of what I've been doing, and I felt the other day I was doing Muay Thai. I'm like, man, I feel so much better than I just felt like everything was so smooth, and I don't know if it's like the compound effect. I'm just getting better and better and better. Or now that I have this huge confidence being 4-1 in the UFC, like feeling really comfortable in there. But yeah, I feel like I'm on a different level than I was before. So, my opponents can study every fight. They're not going to see what I'm going to do to this next fight. And it's be the most violent fighter you could be. My goal and my job, first, the number one goal is to get my hand raised no matter what. And then my second goal, which is close to that, which maybe even more important, is just gain as many new fans as I can. I want every single, the millions of people watching to be like, dude, I love this Billy Q kid. I love how he fights. I love his energy. He puts on a show. He's not taking the safe route. He's there to knock out Shane Burgos, and let the best man win.
Yeah, and knocking out Shane Burgos is not, it hasn't proved it's easy task for anyone. What did you make of that last fight? Because for me as a fight fan, you kind of see it all through the years, and we see so many leg breaks now that you don't really wince or worry about it too much. But the way he went down, I was generally worried for him. What did you make of that knockout?
Yeah, I was watching that fight just as a fan, just as a fan of both guys, just respect level for both guys. That'd be another fight I'd love, the Edson Barbosa fight, just fighting legends now. And it was a vicious knockout, and he looked good that fight. I was watching it as a fan, and Shane Burgos looked good in that fight. And then Edson was just a little bit sharper, and I think he'll be fine. I don't think he's going to have anything's going to affect him for this fight. I'm sure he did the right stuff, recovered, took a couple months off of sparring, got himself back in. I've been rocked before. I've never been rocked that bad, but I think he'll be recovered. And for me to think that this could affect his fight would be foolish of me. And, to think he's going to be a lesser version of himself would be really foolish. So I'm going in there to fight the best Shane Burgos in the world, the guy who, has all these highlight reel knockouts and finishes and crazy good fights. And that's who I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight the best version of that, and he's going to get the best Billy Q that's possible too.
Yeah, hopefully that's what we get. He as you said, he looked great, and it was more just a weird knockout than he seemed to be okay quickly after it. So yeah, can't wait to see that one. And just to finish this off, talking about Shane Burgos, how do you see the fight playing out? When you're imagining the fight playing it through, how do you see yourself getting your hand raised? Can you get the stoppage, or is this more of a see it through the 15 minutes?
Obviously you don't want to sound cocky and say I'm going to go there and finish him. That's the goal. That's the game plan. I've been sponsored by No Judges Needed, a company that's their motto. No judges needed. Don't leave it in the hands of the judges. And I think I have more finishes than him. I think I have more knockouts. I could be wrong, but I think I'm just as capable of finishing this fight as he is. And I'm just going to go into it the same way I always go into these fights. I'm just going to give him hell for 15 minutes, not a second less, not a second more, bell to bell. And he's got a lot of problems that I could bring to this fight. Obviously he's got a lot of weapons too. So it's just going to be a great fight. I think we're going to steal the show. I'm sure we're going to fight early in the card, and we're going to get the crowd excited for that huge main card. And hopefully I'll be able to watch that in the arena, or at least in a nice spot after.
Yeah, and just moving on, we obviously featherweight division, you guys are in it. It's stacked at the minute. Where does a win over Burgos put you in the division? I think you'd be ranked at least 14th. So after that, when you're going into 2022, what are the type of fighters you're looking to take on?
Yeah, well, the goal, just go out there and put on a show for Burgos. So the type of show where they're like, all right, now Billy Q's ranked 14. Now let's give him a fight, even higher up. Keep chasing that world championship. I don't really want to get in the top 15 just to fight outside of it again. I know it sounds, selfish or whatever, but I'm 32 years old. The only thing I'm interested is big money fights and title fights. I'm still chasing that dream of a world championship. Volkanovski is still in the crosshairs. Definitely watching him versus Ortega closely. But yeah, puts me in the top 15. It puts me where I thought in the direction I've always thought I was headed. We had a little bump in the road with the Gavin Tucker fight, but we bounced back, and now we're going to prove a lot of people wrong. Top 15, and then after that, top 10. Top 10 after that, or just a big money fight, a big name fight, maybe a former champion, former big name, one of these big up and coming guys that are getting a lot of publicity. Don't want to give their names away, but you know who I'm talking about. There's a lot of big names out there, and we're willing to fight whoever we can to make the most money in the next 5 years of a career that I hopefully have left.
Yeah, and you mentioned it there that the world title is on the line is next week now, isn't it?
I believe
Brian
so,
Ortega,
yeah.
Alexander Volkanovski. How do you see that one playing out?
I've said from the beginning that just from the fight film that we've seen, I think Volkanovski is going to get it done. He's looked really good against, say what you want about the Holloway fights. He looked good in those fights. He looked good against Chad Mendez. He's done well against grapplers or who guys who might want to try to submit him. So I think Volkanovski is going to get it done. However, I'm not really following him that closely. So I don't know how their training camps are going. I think a lot of fights are won during these training camps. And that's why it's so hard to bet on fights sometimes, because you see someone in one fight. I was a huge underdog against Benitez at one point, and a lot of people made that underdog money. So you don't really see what they're doing in their spare time. But on paper, Volkanovski, I think, gets it done. And I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a good, tough, maybe Volkanovski finishes him in the third or fourth round or goes to a decision. But yeah, I think Volkanovski has done more in the fight game so far.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so tough, but better on these fights. Obviously, we had Darren Till the other week. He was fighting with a torn ACL, and of course, I'm from Liverpool, so right. I'm putting some money on Darren Till, but I don't have a clue what's going on in that camp. Just moving on from that, you've obviously got a bunch of contenders towards the top of that division. We've just mentioned Volkanovski and Ortega. You've got Holloway and Jakadze right there. When you think about, say a year or two's time, when you're getting towards that title contention, who do you expect to be holding that title?
Man, that's a good question, because it seems like a lot of the top guys don't really fight that often. Like Zabit and what's his name, Yair Rodriguez. I feel like some of those guys don't really fight that often. So, man, it's tough to say. I would say probably Max Holloway is probably the most dangerous guy in the division right now. If Ortega wins the belt, it'll be interesting. They probably make that matchup, but I think Holloway's maybe scheduled to fight Yair again. I'm not really too sure, but I think Max Holloway's the best guy in the division. So that's who's the uncrowned champ right now at this point. I thought he won the second fight with Volk, but either way, everyone has fights matched up anyway, so it'll all play out eventually. But I think Holloway's the best in the division right now at today.
Brilliant. And just before I let you go, we've got some big fights coming up, and I'd love to get your thoughts on them if you don't mind.
Okay. Yes, sir.
First off, we've got Nick Diaz returning against Robbie Lawler. Absolutely brilliant fight. Who are you taking in this one?
Man, I've been a huge fan of Nick Diaz forever. I've seen all of his Pride fights, his early UFC fights, obviously the fight with Robbie Lawler before. I'm a decent big Robbie Lawler fan. I've always been, he's one of those guys like that I want to model myself after. He's such an exciting fighter. You can't miss a Robbie Lawler fight, So I'm rooting for Nick Diaz, but I think Robbie gets it done just because he's been a little more active, and I just think that time off is going to play into it. But I'm rooting for Nick Diaz, so let's go Nick Diaz. We're going to go Nick Diaz gets the win. I'm going to go with the man I'm rooting for. Let's go Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz Army. Let's get it.
Should be a great one. And next up, we've got Charles Oliveira against Dustin Poirier, hopefully happening before the end of the year.
Yeah, I think Dustin Poirier gets that done. Been obviously a huge fan of Poirier forever. I'm a fan of Oliveira too. I like him. He's a good, tough fighter. But I think the story that I've been following the most is the Dustin Poirier story. Followed him early, when he was doing very well at featherweight, then lost to McGregor, then came up to lightweight, has fought the who's who at the lightweight division, has just put on wars for the last few years. Losing to Khabib and then coming back and beating McGregor twice. I think his story is more interesting, and I think a great way to end a career would be to getting the official belt, because he's already gotten the interim belt. So I think Charles already has the belt. I think Dustin winning that fight and probably calling it a career after that, or maybe defending it once, maybe like some kind of super fight. I think Poirier gets it done.
Yeah, both guys have brilliant stories. And another, great story coming up is two guys originally out of the same gym, now holding heavyweight belts, Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, man, what an interesting story that is. So I'm going to have to go, and I bet again, not bet, but I picked against Cyril Gane last fight. I believe that's how you say his name. Apologize for the pronunciation. But I'm going to go with Francis in this one. And I just think his power is too powerful. He looked great against Stipe, knocked him to the moon. I feel like he, even early on, if he lands those big shots, he can knock anyone out. And he's gotten a lot better at landing that shot. Against Derek Lewis early and against Stipe the first time, he wasn't as developed that he was. But I know the guys he trains with over at Extreme Couture. Shout out to Eric Nixick. Very good coach, works with Francis, looks like pretty much every single day. So I think Francis gets it done. I think he's just a little too powerful. I know, his opponent has good footwork, this and that, but I think that one punch power is going to get it done. And plus he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder because how they kind of played him in this last, the title fight situation.
Yeah, it's going to be a brilliant one. That's a shame it's not in France or Paris or wherever they could have took it. I think that's planned for the start of next year, so can't wait for that one. And that's pretty much it from me. Have you got anything you want to add, Billy?
No, man, thanks for having me. I'm hoping one of my vision board goals is to fight in London one day, so hopefully I can make it over there and be over there in England. I'm a big fan of the English culture, so thanks for having me, and good luck to Liverpool or whoever you root for.
Thanks, man. Well, good luck with the rest of camp. Hopefully I will see you whenever the UFC are doing another London show. Hopefully we'll be there, and I'm gonna
get on that card.
Hopefully.
All right, brother.
Yeah, good luck with camp. Good luck with the fight. Can't wait to watch, mate. Thank you.
All right, brother. Thanks for having me. Later.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.